do this. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Ooh, wait. What's going on? Welcome into the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching the show on X, _ Jonathan Smith, to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. Jake Arthur of Locked On Colts is going to join me here in about 20 minutes as we, look back one final time on that game against the Rams and, of course, look ahead to the game Sunday at home at Lucas Oil Stadium, where the Colts will host the Las Vegas Raiders. Major League Baseball playoffs started. Awesome. It's just amazing. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on as well. But I want to start with the NFL. I was sitting on my couch last night watching baseball, hanging out with my wife, trying to be a good husband. And we're sitting there talking, and I started thinking about the NFL because this just happens, right? And I was thinking about the new dynamic special teams kickoff rules, right? And how they have completely changed the sport. Not completely, but they've definitely altered the sport and the things that are important and the things that aren't as important. So last year, or this is the second year of the dynamic kickoff, right? Where everyone stands down the field and the kicker's by himself and he kicks it and you can't move until the football is touched. So they did it last year and they brought it back this year, but they made a slight tweak to the rule. So last year, if there was a touchback, the ball got brought out to the 30-yard line. This year, they're bringing the football out to the 35. And that has led to a decrease in the number of touchbacks and an increase in the number of returns. And I think that that's a good thing. So compared to last year, I was looking for data. This is what I could find. So through the first 2 weeks of the season, I know we're a month into it, but bear with me here. Through the first 2 weeks of the season in 2024, so last year, 67% of kickoffs resulted in a touchback. Through the first 2 weeks this season, only 17% of kickoffs have been touchbacks. During last year's first 2 weeks of the season, only 31% of kickoffs were returned. This year, that number's up to 79%. That, to me, is a great thing. I am no longer saying, it's a kickoff. Let me go grab a snack. Let me go, use the restroom. Let me go do something other than watch football, that I can do in these next 2 minutes. Let me go move the laundry over. Whatever it is, because last year and, all the years prior to that, you could do that because you knew that the kickoff was just an uneventful play. It felt like a placeholder just to symbolize the changing of possession. And this year, you have to actually watch the kickoff. It is dictated late game decisions made by coaches. Ben Johnson playing against the Vikings, telling the guy to kick the football, out of the back of the end zone or whatever, and then they weren't able to, and he came out and he's like, look, it's a 5-yard difference. I should have told him to kick it out of bounds, because who cares if they start at the 40 instead of the 35. Week 2, Colts versus Broncos. Part of why the Colts ran the football as much as they did, according to Coach Steichen, was with the new kickoff rules, field position is better, and they didn't, want to give the Broncos the football at the 35-yard line because then you're 2 first downs away from kicking a field goal that probably would have won the game for the Broncos. And so they were committed to not kicking the football back to the Broncos. And once again, I think that the rule change is a good thing. I get it. It looks funky. Who cares? More action, more plays that actually matter. Now, because there are more returns and because the touchbacks are brought out further, this has led to an improvement in field position for offenses. Like when I was a kid growing up, if there was a touchback, the ball came out to the 20. 15 yards is a lot. It is. So now, whenever a touchback happens and the football gets brought out to the 35 or there's a kickoff return, the average starting field position now off of these kickoffs is the 30-yard line. So now you need 2 first downs and you can kick a field goal. That's all that you need now. And this also matters. Not only is field position better, but the NFL has changed the rules on the balls that kickers are allowed to kick. So before this year, you had to use a brand new, crisp NFL football that hadn't been broken in. That is no longer the rule. Kickers can now bring footballs that they've broken in. And I heard Pat McAfee talk about this, and he mentioned that this can add 10 to 15 yards of distance kicking an actually broken football compared to a non-broken in football. And so teams are now starting with better field position, and they're able to make kicks from further out. We saw Cam Little in Jacksonville make a 70-yarder in the preseason. Brandon Aubrey made a 63-yard field goal at some point during the season with ease. I was like, that'd have been good from 75. Maybe not 75, but you get my point. Okay? So that, to me, means that defense in the NFL is more important than it has ever been because offenses are starting with shorter fields more often than they ever have. It's the reality of it. And in addition to that, because teams are starting at the 35 and the 40 and so on, if you pick up a first down and you're around midfield, guess what teams are doing now when they're around midfield? Or they're at the opposing team's 45. They're going for it on fourth down. And so your defense is playing more plays with shorter field position, with it easier for teams to get into field goal range because of these new footballs. Defense is more important than it ever has been in the NFL because of these very slight changes to the kickoff rules. And when you look at it, defense has always been important. I've always been a believer in the fact that defense is what wins championships because teams that are good enough to win the Super Bowl are always going to have a good quarterback, and you have to have a good enough defense to stifle that. We saw that in the Super Bowl last year. Spags, the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, been elite at it. Bill Belichick won a ton of Super Bowls because his defense was always really good. And he had Tom Brady. That obviously mattered as well. But now you have to be great on third down. The top 10 third down defenses in the NFL are all at least 500. Every team that's 3-1 or better is in the top half of the NFL in third down defense, except for the Colts, Bills, and Jaguars. So you have to be great on third down. You have to be able to force turnovers, or you have to be able to create negative plays for the opposing team's offense. And the three teams, the Colts, Bills, and Jags that aren't great on third down, even though the Colts were much improved on Sunday against Matthew Stafford and the Rams, two of those three teams are elite at forcing turnovers. The Jacksonville Jaguars have forced 13 turnovers through 4 games. That's absurd. The Colts are 7th, tied for 7th in takeaways. The Bills are 14th, which isn't great, but they have Josh Allen. That matters, obviously. Okay, the Eagles, Rams, Steelers, Lions, and Seahawks, all teams that are 3-1 or better, they are all also top 10 in takeaways. And then you have tackles for loss, your ability to create these negative plays. Do you remember when I came on this show and I was doing my big, bold predictions for the upcoming NFL season. And I said that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were going to be the 1 seed in the NFC. And then everyone said I was nuts. And now they're 3-1, and they're incredibly injured. And as the year goes on, and as they get healthier, and Mike Evans comes back, and their starting right tackle comes back, they're going to be in really good position to do that. I just wanted to bring that up. But anyway, tackles for loss, the ability to create negative plays, right? Because obviously, if a team picks up 2 first downs, but then you're able to create, a sack or, a 4-yard tackle for loss, whatever it is, like that can push teams out of field goal range. The Buccaneers are 3-1, and they lead the league in tackles for loss. The Steelers are second. They're 3-1. The 49ers are sixth. They're 3-1. The Chargers are ninth. They're 3-1. The Colts are 12th, slightly above average. They are also 3-1. Everyone, rightfully so, is incredibly infatuated with quarterbacks in the NFL. It is still the most important position in football. But I do think that with shorter fields, your quarterback doesn't have to be quite as good. Now, the inverse of this would be, the Bills have scored 30 points or more in all 4 games this year. When you have a guy like that and you have to go a shorter distance, you're going to score more points. That's the reality of it. But also, with these shorter fields, like your quarterback doesn't have to be spectacular. When I was growing up and a touchback put you down on the 20, like you had to have Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or any one of these other elite quarterbacks because you had to consistently sustain drives to be able to put up points. You had to consistently overcome a penalty because you just ran more plays because instead of having to go 65 yards, you had to go 80. And so you had to have someone like Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, running the offense, keeping you on schedule, converting, sometimes multiple 3rd and longs on a possession because you had to go further. That's just simply not the case anymore. Like, could you imagine if Peyton Manning and Tom Brady had shorter fields when they played? Like, you remember when Peyton Manning playing for the Broncos, he sets the record for touchdown passes in a season. Like, could you imagine if his average starting field position had been like the 33 as opposed to it's probably around the 25 then? Jeez. Now, it's just so different. Sam Darnold, and this is not me taking a shot at Sam Darnold. This is just the reality. I don't know if you watched Thursday Night Football, Cardinals, Seahawks, awesome game. I hope you watched it. The Cardinals put together this drive to tie the game, right? 20-20. Big moment. It's like, oh, Sam Darnold, here we go. He has an opportunity to put together a game-winning drive. He threw one 18-yard pass to Jackson Smith and Jigba after a really good kickoff return, put him at it was past the 35. He made one good back shoulder fade throw to Jackson Smith and Jigba. And then it's like, all right, we're in field goal range. Let's run down the clock. It's the reality of it. He put together a, game-winning drive in prime time because he completed one pass. It's just so different. And I bring all this up because I want to go back to Sunday. Colts are playing the Rams, and the Colts are playing the Rams. And the Colts, Daniel Jones, that final game-winning drive, he had to go 90 yards. And this is not me taking a shot at Daniel Jones. I'm doing Over the Hump Day later on in the show. By the way, Jake Arthur of Locked On Colts, he's going to join the show here in about 5 minutes or so. But if Daniel Jones doesn't start the drive backed up inside his own 10, then that drive probably goes pretty differently because it's just so much easier to go, 65 yards as opposed to 90. You just have to be so much more crisp in your operation. And, that paired with, just how much smarter these offensive coaches have gotten. Like Kyle Shanahan took Jimmy Garoppolo, a career backup outside of his time in San Francisco, to a Super Bowl. We are seeing different NFL quarterbacks, and this is, not me. This is me giving out compliments to coaches now. We're seeing quarterbacks go to different places, land in just a different offensive system, and then all of a sudden, like they're figuring it out. Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones here in Indy, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith. Even though with the way that Geno Smith is playing right now, I don't know if you can include him in that conversation anymore. But the importance of defense is just increasing as they continue to modify these kickoff rules. Okay? Like having a defense that can create negative plays is going to become more important than ever if this rule with the kickoffs and field position ends up sticking around. And I think that it will, because the NFL wants you to watch as many plays as possible. They don't want for the kickoff to just be another play. They want you to be invested in that play, and that is happening. And so it's going to stick around. And defenses defending short fields, the ability to do that is only going to become more and more important. Jake Arthur, a Locked On Colts, is joining me here in about 3.5 minutes. We're going to talk about, we're going to put a bow on Colts Rams, and we're going to start looking ahead to Colts and Raiders. Jake Arthur, Locked On Colts, here in about 3 minutes.
Jonathan Smith Show? Now, this is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM. If you are watching on X, do yourself a favor. Go follow Jake Arthur at Jake Arthur NFL. He does a great job covering the Colts via the Locked On Colts podcast, and also he writes for the Round Table Network. Jake, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, I am beautiful. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. I was excited to kind of open talking about Colts, Rams, and Daniel Jones and all that kind of stuff, but news just broke. Shaq Leonard has officially retired from the NFL. Just kind of your thoughts on his career and his time here in Indy.
Yeah, that's unfortunately a guy whose career, he got robbed of really a Hall of Fame career, and the Colts got robbed of being able to kind of get the fruits of his labors. You know, he was so good there in his first, 3 or 4 years until he came due for that contract extension time, and he started to get hurt, had that, debilitating injury with his back. You just hate to see. But before that, his numbers and his ability to affect the game in so many different ways was really just unrivaled. I mean, he's one of those guys who had high tackle numbers, yes, but at the same time, he was so much more than that. He was just a ball of lightning for that defense all over the field. Interceptions, forced fumbles, fumble recovery, sacks, like anything you would need a defensive player to do, he could do it. And you've seen a lot of those type of guys come into the league over the last several years, those kind of tweeners where their body type maybe doesn't fit this position or that one. And then teams try and move them around and it just never really clicks. And Leonard was just one of the best examples of an actual success story from it. So, tip of the cap to him for a great career. You hate to see it end how it did. But at the same time, great to see there's no animosity with how it ended with the Colts, and that he's coming back here at halftime Sunday to retire as a member of the team.
Yeah, that is great, because I'm sure that when I believe that they released him, if I remember correctly, like that's not an easy thing. And then I believe the Eagles picked him up there. And so, like you said, glad that there's no animosity there. He was, a really, really good player in that short window. All right, let's talk Colts now. What's more surprising, the Colts being 3-1 or the Ravens being 1-3?
It's got to be the Ravens being 1-3, only because, no matter what, they've had some difficulties on that schedule, but they're a team that is just always, God, they look like a buzzsaw through the first several years, or through the first several weeks every year, it seems like. And it's not just that they're like playing well and it hasn't resulted in wins because of their schedule. They don't look great at all. Like their defense kind of stinks. It's like the worst Ravens defense we've seen in quite some time. Lamar was pretty good, like really, really good actually his first few weeks. Didn't look that great, against the Chiefs, and now he's got the hamstring. So there's a lot of things they got to hopefully get figured out in time to gather themselves to, number one, even make the postseason at this point, if, Lamar's going to miss any time, but to make a serious run. Because, I mean, you build this much of a hole, and it's really, really difficult to overcome. The Colts, meanwhile, we've always kind of said, like, this roster in general is pretty good. They just need some at least average quarterback play, and they've been getting above average quarterback play, which has led to them being 3-1 and what really should be 4-0. So it's somewhat surprising. I'm not going to act like the Colts should have, been some Super Bowl pick or anything.
Yeah.
But the Ravens annually are a Super Bowl pick for probably most people.
Joined by Jake Arthur, host of Locked On Colts, also the Colts beat writer for the Round Table Network, talking, Colts and just kind of the first quarter of their season. So I wanted to ask you that to set up this question. Like you mentioned, the Ravens defense struggling. Tough to be good when you're missing 6 starters now, I think it is. So besides Daniel Jones, Who's the most important Colt that has to stay healthy this year?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think Bernhardt Ryman definitely ranks up there because you have very little depth at offensive tackle. Charvarius Ward, that's a must. We saw what that was like against the Broncos. Latu as well. So I guess you really kind of have to split that pie between three people because Latu is the pass rush on the outside for the most part. Again, him and Ward were both out against the Broncos, and their areas were sorely missed. Like, you could absolutely say, hey, if Ward was in here or if Latu was in here, this would have looked a lot better. But then Ryman as well. Like, you got to have someone protecting Jones there because he's performed really, really well under pressure so far. But at the same time, if it's like relentless pressure, then there's only so much you can ask. That's one reason we saw such a dip in efficiency and production against the Rams as their previous three games. They were handling the pressure well, and Jones was as well. But the Rams really threw the most at them, the Colts. So that pass protection has really got to be at a premium. You cannot afford to lose Bernhard Raimann.
Totally agree on all three of those. I'd like to offer a fourth guy into that like pie if we're gonna split it up. What about Jonathan Taylor? Because like obviously,
yeah,
like if he misses like the rest of the season, like that's really problematic. But like you were at training camp. We haven't seen much of Tyler Goodson this year. I know he's been a little banged up. DJ Giddens, I think, played like not very many snaps. I know one of them he just completely missed. Helping out Bernhard Raimann on a pass rush. But do you, just based off what you've seen from those guys, because like I said, you've seen them more than everyone else. Do you like those guys enough that if Jonathan Taylor like tweaks his ankle and he misses 2 games, like is that enough to kind of keep the Colts offense moving?
I think you could probably manufacture a run game with those guys based on how well the offensive line run blocks in general. Taylor is brilliant though, and like if he's not there, you're gonna be missing something for sure. I mean, really all they would need is a respectable run game to be able to pick up, the third and fourth and shorts, to be able to not put them really behind on the sticks when they're rushing on first and second down. Just pick up the yards that are there, essentially. The Colts don't need to have like a brilliant run game in order to be good. They just happen to have one of the best running backs in the league. But I think those guys have been fine. But at the same time, it's really hard to judge them so far because, I mean, the Colts have been just running Jonathan Taylor, and I don't want to say into the ground, but he's not getting a lot of rest so far. We kind of thought he would. They invested heavily in the run game this offseason, initially bringing in Khalil Herbert and then Giddens, and then, they seem to really like Tyler Goodson as well. So we kind of thought that Taylor might finally have some compliments in the backfield, but at the same time, he's playing as complete a football as he ever has and leaving less and less reason to take him off of the field, really. So he's catching the ball well. He's pass protecting really well. So it's hard to judge those other guys. In general, as prospects, I really like DJ Giddens and think he would be fine if given an extended look where he had to run the ball like 16, 17 times. But it's not going to look like Jonathan Taylor.
It's not, because Jonathan Taylor's playing football about as well as anyone else in the NFL right now. Once again, joined by Jake Arthur, host of the Locked On Colts podcast and Colts beat writer for the Roundtable Network, talking about the Colts. So that Rams game, I just really weird. You mentioned that the Colts should be 4-0. I'm assuming you're referring to the A.D. Mitchell drop.
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah, for sure.
One of them, yeah. That game to me, I think that was the sloppiest game that the Colts have played. Just, all the penalties, obviously the A.D. Mitchell hold, the A.D. Mitchell drop, fumbling the football at the half-yard line. Zaire Franklin dropped a pick. Charvarius Ward, he dropped a pick. And that it was weird to me because that hasn't, like, as average as the Colts have been, I feel like they've been really buttoned up under Steichen. I don't feel like they're as buttoned up this year. Do you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I think the penalties is something that definitely has to get cleaned up because coming into the game, they weren't that heavily penalized compared to other teams, but at the same time, they were coming at really poor moments. Like in the red zone, that's one of the reasons they haven't been very good in the red zone is they're committing these just untimely penalties like holding and doing all this stuff while they're trying to drive down and get touchdowns instead of field goals. Um, in general, I think they have been disciplined overall outside of, Sunday's penalties, which was really, really dumb. A.D. Mitchell, that one, man, yeah, it's just tough. I feel like it's a kid who is finally like seeing vindication in his eyes as he's about to cross the goal line because obviously he had that really rough rookie year and just let the moment get the best of him. I mean, 9 times out of 10, that ball's not even gonna like slide out of his hand.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you feel for him there. The Ward and Franklin dropped interceptions. Like those are kind of excusable. But in general, I kind of came away from this loss a little encouraged because we've seen in the past when the Colts have those games where they're unraveling and they're making a lot of stupid mistakes and a lot of these self-inflicted wounds, they just go into a shell and the other team just starts pounding them. But the Colts actually kept it up and fought throughout the entire game. And up until Jones' interception at the end, you thought they still had a chance. I mean, even after A.D. Mitchell's drop there, I think they forced like 3 straight punts for the Rams, which was not the case if you look at like the Broncos game last year when that happened to Taylor. When that happened to Taylor, the Broncos began pouring it on after that. So I really did like the way the Colts continued to fight after that and keep it close and even bring the game back. I think it was encouraging if they can just clean up some of those self-inflicted wins a bit.
Joined by Jake Arthur, host of the Locked On Colts podcast and Colts beat writer for the Round Table Network. You can follow him on X at Jake Arthur NFL. How much of that fight and ability to come, how much of that is just a belief in Daniel Jones? Because I really liked watching Anthony Richardson last year. Thought he was going to win the job early on, but let's just be honest. If the Colts got down last year, it was kind of tough to believe in them because they had a quarterback who only completed half of his passes.
Yeah, and it's really weird because Anthony was almost at his best, like at the end of games when they needed it. But at the same time, like it's hard for, I'm sure, teammates and people watching all alike to really believe in someone if they haven't been showing it throughout a game. But there's almost no doubt even to be had when your quarterback is playing at the level that, because you just assume he's going to keep it up, and then the natural next step is a touchdown because the vast majority of the Colts drives this year have resulted in points. So when you go out there late in the game, even if you're down, if you're trying to milk out the clock and nurse your win or whatever, you just naturally assume that whatever the best outcome of the drive can be is going to happen because your quarterback is leading you in that direction and has proven time and time again that these drives are going to be fruitful. So yeah, what he's doing, I think, is something that kind of brings an entire team together, and it's very hard to win late in games if you don't have confidence, and the Colts, I at least think, have that confidence.
I want to start looking ahead a little bit to Sunday when the Colts host the Raiders. I feel so wrong about the Raiders because coming into the year, I was like, upgraded head coach. Geno Smith's better than Aiden O'Connell, and then Geno Smith's looked like the guy who got benched in New York for these first 3 weeks. What are you kind of expecting in this game Sunday, and what about the Raiders do you find concerning for the Colts?
Yeah, what my biggest concern with them is, it's like, of course, they just figured out Ashton Genty last week coming into this matchup because Genty is truly a monster. He's a guy I don't really think they figured out how they needed to have him involved within their game plan, and then that they would need to, fully involve him in the passing game and the run game. But I mean, last week he just absolutely exploded in that matchup, both as a receiver and a runner. And the Colts run defense is something that really, really concerns me. I think you and I have talked about it for the last several weeks. Like, if an opponent was in a position to commit to the run in a game and do it throughout a game, they were probably going to be able to beat the Colts. And I mean, we kind of saw that with the Rams. When the Rams wanted to run the football and Kyron Williams was out there, they were able to do it. The Colts have been giving up, around, like, coming into last week was like 4.8 yards per carry. So now I'm sure it's around 5. So yeah, if the Raiders are able to keep it close and their defense steps up a little bit against the Colts offense and they try and establish Genty, that's the way to beat the Colts. And especially since they have a presence where they can get in those outlet passes and stuff, that could make the Colts in for a long day. So the offense has really got to keep the Raiders in general on their toes, because if Las Vegas starts to get a lead and they want to run the ball more and milk the clock, that could be a huge problem for the Colts.
I agree. My audience is probably like, Jonathan, can we just like not have like a 10-minute rant on the Colts run defense again? Coming out of that game against the Rams, I was like, Kyron Williams only ran the football 13 times. Like, love Sean McVay. I think Sean McVay's a really smart guy. But if a guy's averaging 6 yards a carry, I'd probably give it to him more than just 13 times. So that part of it is really concerning. Offensively, obviously, Max Crosby's an issue. But, the Colts offensive line's been really good. But I feel like this should be a big day for Daniel Jones, just because the secondary for the Raiders, I don't find to be very impressive.
No, not at all. When you look at the Raiders, there's not, like, most of what worries you is on the offensive side of the ball. And their starting left tackle actually just is going to, go on IR with an ankle issue now. So that even helps them even further. But defensively, yeah, it's just, there's nothing really that worries you. Obviously, Max Crosby is just a monster. So, like, he's someone you always got to be worried about. They do have some talent on the front. They have a guy who actually came from the Colts, defensive tackle Jonah Laulu, who the Colts were gutted to lose him, and now he's kind of flourishing with the Raiders now. But at linebacker, Devin White and Jermaine Pratt, they're productive tacklers and they can move around a bit, but it's, they're not going to be able to, those guys, to be able to defend like Tyler Warren, for example, very well. You can run on this team. They rank in the bottom half of the league in pretty much every meaningful defensive metric. So I do like exactly what you're saying with the secondary. I would pick on them for sure. You got some young guys back there, some guys who have a history of being, I guess, able to be picked on as well. So this could be one where, you see Jones totally control the game again. I don't know. Like, they always want to have Jonathan Taylor be the focal point. But we could see another one where Jones is throwing for north of 300 yards in this one.
Hey, that sounds great. That sounds fun. I love 300-yard passing games. Jake Arthur, host of the Locked On Colts and host of the Locked On Colts podcast, and he's the Colts beat writer for the Round Table Network. Last thing for you, Jake, and I will let you go. I'll be honest, man. Like, I was surprised. It's Wednesday, and I'm surprised that Xavier Howard still has a locker. What is kind of the plan for the Colts at corner? Like, are they just waiting until week 6 when Jalen Jones might come back? Like, what do you think is the plan there? Because Xavier Howard, after week 1, it's been pretty abysmal.
Yeah, I don't think the Colts are as committed to Howard being in the starting lineup as they have been over the last couple weeks when we've asked. Normally you get some really strong support for him. Like, he's a veteran who knows what he's doing. He's been productive for a long time, blah, 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 blah. But we finally started to get some yeah buts from Shane Steichen and Lou Anarumo this week. They both agreed, like, yes, he's a veteran who has an impressive career, but at the same time, we can't just really chalk this up to rust anymore. We have to, we got to hit the pedal to the metal. And what I don't really think they can deny is that opponents have identified a weak spot in their secondary and they're exploiting it. Like, I have gotten a little bit of pushback in statements like that this week because people are like, well, Puka Nacua does that to everyone. It's like, yes, absolutely. But everyone has done that to Howard this year also. When you see someone lining up against him, if you get him on like a crosser or a slant or something, somewhere where you have room to run in front of him, you're leaving him in the dust. And that would be one thing if he was really showing 100% effort as well. And I think there's times out there where you look and he's loafing a little bit. He is not running to his fullest. He's kind of letting other guys take care of plays for him after it's passed him by. And that's really not what this defense, that's not what the attitude of this defense is supposed to be. You're seeing it from pretty much everybody else. But as far as Howard goes, I do think the Colts are maybe starting to acknowledge that it's a problem. With that said, you maybe see more Mekhi Blackman in there, more Jonathan Edwards, which saw Edwards in there a little bit late last week, and he even had a nice little pass breakup. Jones, I mean, I think they would be willing to give him a shot to get back in there in the starting lineup, but at the same time, I don't know how much they feel he fits into the scheme, which is why I think they so easily replaced him, in the lineup. Because they went in and Justin Wally pretty much earned the starting role pretty quickly, and then he got hurt, and they've just found ways to get a bunch of other guys involved. So I do think once Jones gets back, hopefully within a couple, 2-3 weeks, that he's given another shot to go out there, because he's at least not a guy who is going to lose you games. He's not outstanding, but he's not going to be a big problem in your defense either. And I mean, he's essentially been the Colts' top outside cornerback for the last 2 years, and hasn't been a problem. So if you need to relegate him to the number 2 corner, I think he's going to be fine.
That's how I feel about it. And to, counter the Puka Nacua point, yes, he's really good, but he also had by far his best game of the year on Sunday, which is saying a lot considering that he went into the game leading the league in receiving yards and receptions. And all that kind of stuff. Crazy. He didn't have a receiving touchdown until Sunday, though. So I'm with you. Xavier Howard, I'm at a point where it's just like anybody else. Jonathan Edwards, Jake Arthur, Zach Hicks. I don't really care. Just anyone but Xavier Howard. And that's, a lot of people say that. And it's just yeah, but I grew up a Dolphins fan, still am to a certain extent. And I love Xavier Howard. The Colts brought him in, and I was like, this is great. I thought that they should have brought him in last year. And now I'm like, you know what? No, they shouldn't. So hopefully we see some sort of tweak there, even if it's just him splitting snaps with Jonathan Edwards. He just doesn't need to be out there, 90% of the time like he is right now. Jake, thanks for your time, man. You were great as always, dude.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Jake Arthur, Locked On Colts, also the Colts beat reporter for the Round Table Network, does a great job covering the Colts. He's at all the practices and the games, and he's in press conferences, real feet on the pavement kind of guy. So always love having him on. Over the Hump Day, because it is Wednesday, is back. Actually, I think I'm going to delay it until 11 because I a lot of thoughts on Daniel Jones through the first quarter of the season coming off of that game against the Rams. So over the Hump Day at 11 to start hour number 2. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, the Major League Baseball playoffs are happening, and I love it. It's amazing. My thoughts on day 1 of the wild card round in 4 minutes.
It may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And, of course, 14:30 a.m. if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. Big thank you to Jake Arthur, who joined me in that last segment. He was great, as he always is. So, Major League Baseball, the playoffs started yesterday, and I love baseball, man. I love postseason baseball. Let me actually correct that, because regular season baseball, it's background noise for me. Put it on just because I like hearing things while I'm doing things around the crib. So let's start with the Cubs, the best team in baseball. Not really. I just want that to be true, you know? So I thought the most surprising thing that happened yesterday was the Cubs bullpen threw 4 straight innings of not allowing a base runner. The Cubs retired the final 14 batters for the San Diego Padres in order. And I'm telling you right now, if you're getting that kind of production from this horrific, and horrific is not, like, that is not an understatement. That bullpen for the Cubs has been dog water. It's been terrible. It's been
booty cheeks
all year. That's why, at the trade deadline, when they didn't make any sort of move for any relief help, it was just like, oh, geez, this is just brutal. And so seeing the bullpen find that much success was the most surprising thing of the day from the Cubs. So hopefully, as a Cubs fan, I hope that continues. It may not. One way or the other, you need one more win. Go in today, and let's just not have to worry about their games anymore, right? Let's get ready for the divisional round, and let's go. So, Cubs hosting the Padres again today at 3:00. Can't wait. Another thing that I just loved, and this is what makes postseason baseball so great. It has a bit of this NBA feel, where when the NBA gets to the playoffs, you can just tell the guys are playing harder. Major League Baseball, it's the exact same thing. I know that people don't want to talk about that for, whatever reason. But it's just true. And I love the urgency of it, especially in the wild card round where it's best 2 out of 3. Nick Sogard, second baseman for the Boston Red Sox, hits 9th. Red Sox are down, 7th inning. There's a guy on first. And Nick Sogard hits a ball to, right center. And it comes off the bat, and I'm like, sweet. First and third, 1 out, back to the top of the order. And I did say sweet because I can't stand the Yankees. And I'm like, this is awesome. First and third, let's go. But Nick Sogard is hauling around first base. And Aaron Judge, who's got one of the best arms in baseball, I'm not going to say he, loafed to the baseball, but the urgency that Aaron Judge had getting to that ball was not the same urgency that Nick Sogard was playing with running the bases. And so he stretches a single into a double, second and third, 1 out. That's a big deal. The double play is no longer in order. Next guy comes up. He hits a single. Red Sox score a run. It was awesome. Just like seeing that level of commitment, seeing that level of hustle and intensity was like to me, that one play symbolized what makes postseason baseball so great. Nick Sogard, the 9th hitter for the Red Sox, is a hero because he hits a big double, right? And it's always, Major League Baseball, it's always just like the most random person who kind of gets hot and becomes a legend. So the 9-hole hitter gets a big knock, turns it into a double. You just see kind of the randomness of postseason baseball paired with just the sense of urgency that you see. I didn't get to watch much of Guardians Tigers. I'll be honest. I went to a movie yesterday. I had to go to the dentist. I got out. I went to a movie, saw The Long Walk. Amazing movie. But I kind of figured that the Tigers would actually no. Yeah. I figured that Cleveland would win. Excuse me. I keep getting crossed. Jeez. I thought the Tigers would win because Tariq Skubal was on the mound. Like having a real ace, such an advantage. We saw the same thing with Matthew Boyd in that Cubs game. Crochet for Boston was really good. Fries for the Yankees was really good, and so on. So really just kind of enjoyed, so yeah, having a real ace is just such an advantage. And then my final takeaway from yesterday, the Dodgers have the best team. Like the lineup is crazy. The pitching's still really good. They have the best team, no doubt about it. Okay. And games continue today, 1:00. We're 2 hours away from first pitch of game 2 of Guardians and Tigers. Can't wait for it. Going to be a blast. When we come back here in about 4.5 minutes, it is Wednesday, which means we have to do over the hump day. Daniel Jones, not a great performance. We're checking in every Wednesday on him. Over the hump day, Daniel Jones coming your way in about 4 minutes.
It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Hour number 2 of the real Jonathan Smith Show. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And, of course, 1430 a.m. if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. I know there are many, many ways to listen to people talk about the Colts and everything else going on around here in Indy. So thank you for picking my show. It is Wednesday, and we love Wednesdays because that means that it's time for the single best sounder ever created in the history of radio. Over the Hump Day. Here we go.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on. I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's Hump Day.
Woo-hoo! Hump Day!
No, as a coach, I gotta get us over that hump. I gotta get them comfortable, knowing that you're gonna be in close games and you gotta make plays coming down the home stretch. I mean, in the tournament, we were right there. I just didn't get them over the hump, man. And that's something that I live with every day of my life. Because I truly believe that was the team to really make some noise and get to the finals, and I just couldn't get them over the hump.
I love that sounder so much. Over the Hump Day started out as a thing where we talked about whether or not Mike Woodson could get the Indiana Hoosiers over the hump, but it is now, the sounder's just too good to get rid of it. So now we just kind of use it wherever we can. And this year, this football season, we're using it for Daniel Jones. So last year, we did quarterback defense attorney, where we defended every single Anthony Richardson performance, no matter how good or how bad it was. Now, we do Daniel Jones over the hump day. Has he gotten over the hump of being a guy who people don't really trust? Because obviously when he comes over from New York, he doesn't have the trust of anybody. And we're just kind of tracking if he's gotten over that hump of, okay, he's playing quarterback. The Colts have the football. I feel pretty good about it. Last week, I didn't do this bit because there's only so many ways that I can say I need to see more. And, I feel like I've done that enough, and I've done it 3 weeks in a row. I was like, you guys don't need to hear it a fourth time. But we finally saw a bad game. I sounded way too excited to say that, but it's really just so that I could do the segment again, not because I don't want him to play well. So Daniel Jones comes out and just kind of takes the world by storm. Comes out against the Dolphins, 22 of 29, 272 passing yards, completed 76% of his passes, 1 touchdown, no picks, 2 rushing touchdowns. Just an electric start to the season. And then week 2, it's like, all right, can he do it again? This Broncos defense, so much better than that Miami Dolphin defense. And what does he do? Played his best game of the year. 23 of 34, 316 yards. That's a 68% completion percentage, by the way. 1 touchdown, no picks, only sacked once, and he had another rushing touchdown. And then week 3 comes out. It's like, can he do it on the road? All the Daniel Jones haters just finding every question possible to ask about this guy. I did it at home against a bad team. I did it at home against a good team. Can he do it on the road, though, against maybe the worst team in football? And the answer was absolutely yes. He goes 18 of 25, 228 yards. That's a 72% completion percentage. 1 touchdown, no picks. Just a very easy day for Daniel Jones in that game on the road against the Titans. And then, final pause. Can he do it on the road against a good team? Kind of, I think is the answer. That's kind of how I felt coming out of the game, right? 24-33, right? So once again, very efficient, completing 73% of his passes, right? The yards per attempt was the lowest that it's been all year. The yards per completion was the lowest that it's been all year. But he still had a really nice day. Passer rating of 80, quarterback rating of only 56. Like that's, slightly above average. Didn't really run the ball, didn't use his legs a ton, only had one carry, and you see him get hawked down by Byron Young out on the edge. So the question is, through the first quarter of the season, is Daniel Jones over the hump? And I'm going to argue that he's not. I don't think he's quite there yet. 3 great games, one, let's call it below average game. One below average game because the 2 picks were horrendous. Like they just were. Okay. And just to give you all the facts, 2 of those 3 great games came against a bad defense. One of them came at home against a very good Broncos defense. The game-winning drive in that game, though, wasn't super impressive. The Colts ran 8 plays, and they kicked a field goal, right? So they ran 9 plays, but Daniel Jones only on the field for 8 of them. Of the 8 plays that Daniel Jones was on the field for, 7 of them were runs. He threw 1 pass. It was 7 yards to Alec Pierce on 3rd and 6. On the biggest drive of the game, Shane Steichen was like, we don't need you to throw the football. And there's multiple factors in that, right? Good return from Anthony Gould. You want to run the clock so the Broncos don't get the ball back. Multiple factors in it. But he didn't even let Daniel Jones throw like a slant route. It's just the reality. He didn't let Daniel Jones throw a tight end screen to Tyler Warren to try to pick up 8 yards. There was nothing like that. Nothing like it. And to me, like that shows a lack of trust. Like the Colts ended up settling for a 60-yard field goal. Shane Steichen said, you know what? I would rather run the football a bunch of Jonathan Taylor and kick a 60-yard field goal with, Cody Schrader, a guy who very accurate, Spencer Schrader, who, very accurate, but doesn't have the biggest leg. Yeah, I think I'd rather risk this game on that than let Daniel Jones throw the football 3 times. And look, I'm not saying like it had to be some shot play, but like something simple to pick up 7 yards because the run clearly was not working on that possession for the Colts. So here's what we know. All these things that I'm about to say are facts. Here's what we know about Daniel Jones. When the Colts are operating on schedule, he's awesome. He is so good. Getting the Colts from 1st and 10 to 2nd and 5 to either another first down or 3rd and short. He is excellent at that, has been excellent at it all year, 2nd in the NFL in success rate amongst quarterbacks. He has been like top of the league at keeping the Colts on schedule on a down-to-down basis. And when he does that, he's going to find so much success. So much success. Okay, like when the Colts are able, to have the option to run the football, it just makes everything for him easier. Because on 3rd and 2, you can just hand it off to the best running back in football. On 3rd and 2, you can run play action. On 1st and 10, when you have the best running back in football, like the Colts do right now, you can run play action. When it's 2nd and 5, guess what you can do? You can run play action, right? The opposing team has to be wary of the running back, and that makes Daniel Jones' job easier. With that being said, that is only an option because of how efficient he has been. Okay? And I do think he's limited. I think you can see it a little bit in some of the play calling. He's run more play action than any other quarterback in the NFL. The Colts run as much motion as anyone else in the NFL. And those are 2, I'm not going to call them easy buttons, but those things make your life a little bit easier. Linebackers bite on the play action. It opens up the windows a little bit more. all the motion kind of tells you what coverage the opposing team's in. They're in man because Surtain just followed Michael Pittman from one side of the formation all the way over to the other. Oh, they're in zone because no one really moved. Whatever it is, right? So like they're doing things to make things easier for him. I also think this is important. There's a lot of work being done by these Colts skill players after the catch. The Colts are 8th in the NFL in yards after the catch. Yards after the catch account for almost half of Daniel Jones' passing yards. And like this is, and like, I say that, and some people are like, part of that is him throwing the football, in a place where the guys can catch it and turn upfield. Like that's true, but every quarterback in the NFL should be able to do that. Every single one should be capable of throwing the football out in front. The issue is the Colts had a guy the last 2 years who wasn't capable of doing that. So now a guy does it, and we're supposed to give him credit for it, I guess. So I'm not trying to crap on Daniel Jones. I'm not. Okay? I know it probably feels like I am. I'm just giving you the facts. He's clearly limited. And in the two spots where he had an opportunity to prove that he wasn't limited, he didn't prove it. Like that's the reality of it. Like the Colts, once again, didn't let him throw the football on that final drive against the Broncos. Instead, they decided to settle for a 60-yard field goal. Then, on the road against the Rams, a minute left, all 3 timeouts. Sure, you're backed up, a little bit. You got to go, 90-ish yards on that drive and get a touchdown. But, that was the opportunity to be like, see, guys, I am the guy. I really am. And late against the Rams know he's throwing it. Everyone in the stadium knows that the Colts are throwing the football. And what does he do? What does he do? Nothing. It's just the very simple reality of it. He ends up throwing a pick that iced the game. Okay, so they come out. Colts get the ball on the 35. Right, 10-yard penalty. Wait, no, excuse me. I missed that here. Excuse me. The Colts start the ball at their own 21. My bad. So Daniel Jones completes a pass to Jonathan Taylor for 9 yards. And then he completes one to A.D. Mitchell for 12 yards. And then Quentin Nelson false starts, 5-yard penalty. And then he throws a pick. That was it. And that was the ball game. And that has been, I think, the question with him. How does he operate when he's playing from behind? How good is he on third and got to throw it? And third and got to throw it to me is like 3rd and 8 or more, 3rd and 7 or more, something like that. And to his credit, we haven't had to see him do that much because once again, he's done a very good job of keeping the Colts on schedule. Right. And that is a very valuable thing, as we've seen. Right. Like the Colts aren't 3-1 if he doesn't do a good job of that. But in the big spots where he's got to make a play, we haven't seen him do that yet. Like if you gave Patrick Mahomes the football on his own 21, a minute and 3 timeouts, he's probably going to score a touchdown there. If you give Matthew Stafford the football a minute to go, 3 timeouts, if the situation had been reversed, 27-20, Colts are up. Matthew Stafford has the football at his own 21. He's got to go 79 yards and score a touchdown. As soon as that possession started, I'd have been like, this game is going to overtime. Like, that is what's going to happen because Matthew Stafford is going to find a way to get in the end zone because he's Matthew Stafford, and that's just what we expect from him. Right? Same goes for Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, unless Lamar Jackson's playing the Chiefs. For some reason, he plays them, and he just decides to be terrible. And so on with the best players in football. You can throw Jalen Hurts into that conversation as well. They're down big at halftime to the Rams, and all of a sudden, Jalen Hurts, he has to throw the football a ton, and they win the game. That's the reality of it. So while Daniel Jones has clearly improved, I just want to see him kind of take that final step where fourth quarter, the defense knows he's throwing the football. He has to be better in those spots. Okay, you can't throw an interception by forcing it into double coverage. Like, I get it. You need a chunk play, but come on now. Jonathan Taylor's wide open. Hit him. Let him run for 10 more yards, and then call a timeout. And now you're really cooking. So better decision-making in those spots. But all in all, very pleased with what Daniel Jones has done. If that's his floor, I said this yesterday, if, that game against the Rams is his floor, where he completes, 24 of 33 passes for 260 and, gives the Colts a chance, then the Colts are going to win a lot of football games this year. Just got to be a little bit better down the stretch when the opposition knows you're throwing the football. The Colts 3-1. I still really kind of can't believe it. The Colts are good, and that's a really, really fun thing. And there's one thing not being discussed enough, pointing to why they've been as good as they have. I'm going to tell you what that is in 4 minutes.
The best takes? Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your app. So the Colts, or wait here, 1 second, before I get to the Colts. Big thank you to Rhino Shield for sponsoring the Power Hour. That is today, 2 to 3. Me, Kent, and Dan on the Dan Dockett Show from noon to 3. Big lineup today. Kent, obviously, from 2 to 3, the Power Hour. And Sean Salisbury in the morning. Thank you to Holiday World and Splash and Safari for sponsoring today's show here at the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Get out there. They do such a great job of just like theming their park for the holidays. They're doing some awesome stuff for Halloween right now. They got a really cool drone show going on. So get down there to Holiday World and just have an awesome time, right? Do yourself a favor and just have an awesome time down there. Now, okay, the Colts. So it's staying healthy is so important. We're going to get the practice report today for the Colts. I'm assuming we'll have at least one or two guys who, missed today just with nicks and bruises. Pretty normal for guys to miss practice on Wednesday, especially older players. Like, wouldn't be surprised if DeForest Buckner didn't practice today or, whoever else it ended up being. So before the year, if you had told me that the Colts were 3-1 and the Ravens were 1-3, I'd have been like, that feels kind of backwards. But it makes sense, though, because the Ravens are incredibly injured. Their best defensive player, I don't know about their best defensive player, their best pass rusher, Matabuke, out for the year with a neck injury. Multiple corners. Marlon Humphrey goes down against the Chiefs. Nate Wiggins gets hurt. Kyle Van Noy, a guy who had like 12.5 sacks last year, he's not playing. So they've just had a ton of injuries. And then Lamar Jackson hurts his hamstring, either the right or left tackle. He got hurt in that Chiefs game as well. Like, they've just been crushed by all of these injuries. So many injuries. Jeez. And then you look at the Colts, and it's like, yeah, the Ravens have the better roster when you're comparing starters. But when you're comparing the Colts starters to the Ravens backups, the Colts are going to be better. That's just the reality of it. Okay? And the Colts, outside of the defensive back room, they've gotten unlucky. Right? Like that's the only room where I'm like, geez, man, a lot of guys are hurt. Jalen Jones on IR, could be back in week 6. Justin Wally, obviously out all year. Kenny Moore missing some time with the, Achilles injury. Travarius Ward, he missed a game with a concussion. Aside from that, they've been really healthy. It's honestly impressive how healthy they've stayed through the first month of the season. Only one offensive lineman's been hurt. Mac Gonsalves, he hurt his toe. He was in a boot for a day. Wasn't in the boot last week on Thursday. We'll be keeping an eye out to see if he's going to practice today. Daniel Jones, a guy who has a history of getting hurt before this year. He had missed 25% of his starts due to him being hurt. That does not count the games where he got sat. Like that is legitimately, he missed a quarter of his starts every year because of injury. He has stayed very clean this year. Has done a really good job of not really taking any big hits. He took one down on the goal line when they ran a little read option. Aside from that, this offensive line has done a great job of keeping him clean, right? He's not really getting hit often in the pocket. When he gets out and he scrambles, something I wish he'd have done more of on Sunday against the Rams, he's sliding, getting down, not taking shots. So he stayed incredibly healthy. Leatu Latu missed a game. That's it. Just one, had a little hamstring thing, but he's back and was really good Sunday against the Rams. Outside of him, No other defensive lineman has gotten hurt. It's the reality of it. It's a great reality. All of the linebackers have stayed healthy. They're all just so bad that they've had to like cut guys and bring guys in and sign guys off of other teams' practice squads to give them just a chance at finding a linebacker who can play alongside Zaire Franklin. Alec Pierce is the only wide receiver that's missed a game. And it's because he had a concussion. He should be back this next week. Josh Downs missed a practice. I believe that's the only wide receiver to miss a practice, obviously outside of Alec Pierce this last week. I think he's the only wide receiver to miss a practice. Like that's it. Tyler Warren, despite getting hit all the time, stayed very healthy. He's missed one practice, right? So it's been very fortunate for the Colts, right? So the health of the Colts combined with Daniel Jones playing well, like those are the two reasons why they've been so successful this year. And I was thinking about this, the other night on Monday night when Tyreek Hill got hurt. Tyreek Hill, man, his knee is very messed up. But I walked away from the game. I was like, no big deal. No big deal whatsoever. Like the Dolphins are going to be fine. They'll obviously be worse without him. But they have an abundance of speed at receiver between Jalen Waddle and this Malik Washington kid that they got in the 6th round out of like Washington State a couple years ago. He's really emerged. Devon Achane obviously gives them a ton of speed as well at another skill position spot. And so like the Dolphins are going to be fine. Obviously it sucks for them to lose Tyreek Hill, but they're going to be fine. And then I was thinking about the Colts. Who are those guys? Who are the guys that if the Colts lost them for, a couple weeks or for the rest of the year, they'd be fine? That list I found is incredibly short. Like if Chandler Bortolini went out, Danny Pinter, I think would be fine, filling in. If any of the wide receivers got hurt, we saw it on Sunday. I know A.D. Mitchell made a huge mistake, but like if he had to take Alec Pierce's spot again, or Michael Pittman Jr.'s spot for, a few weeks, I think that the Colts would be fine. I don't think he's going to drop the football every time he's about to cross the goal line. So they'd be fine there. I think that's the end of the list. I mean, seriously. Like, obviously, if you go from Daniel Jones to Anthony Richardson, that'd be problematic. Jonathan Taylor is such a big part of the Colts offense, whether it's running the football, catching the football, being just, a third down back in general. Like, if you go from him to DJ Giddens and Tyler Goodson, like, I don't love that. Right? Receiver, they're fine. Going from Tyler Warren to Mo Alley Cox and Drew Ogletree, don't really love that either. If they go from Bernard Ryman to, I believe, Luke Tenuta, is he a rookie this year? He's not. But if they go from him to, Tenuta, like that's not great. Don't really love that. Left guard, you go from Quentin Nelson to Josh Sills, or even if they just move Dalton Tucker to the left side, like that's obviously like a pretty major drop off. Say like we saw it on Sunday, going from Mac Salvis to Dalton Tucker. Not great, by the way. He's listed as questionable, so hopefully he makes his return on Sunday against the Las Vegas Raiders. Braden Smith, going from him to Jalen Travis, who is a rookie, a 4th round pick. Like that, not exciting. That makes me nervous. It just does. And that's probably going to happen at some point because Braden Smith can't really stay healthy. But like offensively, if they lose anyone, it's just, there's just, it feels like such a steep drop off, except for obviously at receiver and center. And then you move to the defense, and we've already seen some of the issues that arise when guys get hurt. Week 2, playing the Broncos. And what do you get? You get, the, no Latu, no Trevarius Ward. You get Xavier Howard getting all handsy, grabbing anything in an orange jersey on that Sunday. And you got absolutely no pass rush from this defensive line without Leatu Latu, right? And then we saw the difference when those guys came back. It's the reality of it. Linebacker, like I said, doesn't really matter because the Colts are so bad at that spot. So the most important thing for the Colts this year is obviously Daniel Jones. Like, he has to continue to play well. He has to continue to keep this Colts offense on schedule. Because even if you have, backup running backs in there or whatever, all NFL running backs are good at running the football. They wouldn't be NFL running backs if that wasn't the case. Now, obviously, they're not going to be as good as Jonathan Taylor because backups are backups for a reason. But, you still lose an element of explosiveness in your offense without Jonathan Taylor. But even if injuries did arise, if Daniel Jones continued to be really good on first and second down and consistently got them into, third and shorts, then you're going to feel good about the offense. So Daniel Jones playing well still is the most important thing for the Colts this season. All right. Second most important thing is everyone else staying healthy, because this team, it just really lacks depth. And like every other team, to be fair, they're like 2 injuries away from being in real, legitimate trouble. And, this kind of goes back to Ballard because, like, I get it. Like, you have to make roster cuts and do all these things. But teams that consistently draft really well have depth. Like the Eagles can survive more injuries than any other team in the NFL because Howie Roseman has done such a good job in the NFL draft finding value in every single round. And that's just something that outside of receiver, it just kind of feels like Chris Ballard has struggled to do. And we'll see how it goes. So hopefully this Colts team can stay healthy, because if they can stay healthy, then this is a Colts team that's probably going to win 11 or 12 games this year, because the defense has been, solid, very opportunistic, forcing turnovers and doing those things. And this is an offense that has just been really, really efficient so far to start the season. So playoffs for Major League Baseball, they're going on right now. Game 2 between the Tigers and the Guardians starts here in an hour and a half. Can't wait for that. So I'll probably touch on that a little bit to close the show. And of course, speaking of defense and the Colts' defense being solid, I believe that defense is more important than ever in the NFL. I'll tell you why. 4 minutes.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. You can head over there and subscribe. You can also listen or watch on X, _ Jonathan Smith, to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And, of course, 1430 a.m. as well. The Colts defense, much better than I thought it'd be this year. Lou Anarumo scheming it up, forcing turnovers, creating negative plays. And defense, it is more important than ever in the NFL. And it's because of these new kickoff rules, right? The new dynamic kickoff is really impacting scoring in the NFL. I think we're going to see an increase in scoring this year because teams are starting with such better field position. Okay, this is the second year of the dynamic kickoff in the NFL, and they made a slight tweak to the rule. So last year, if there was a touchback, the ball got brought out to the 30. This year, ball gets brought out to the 35. And that has led to a decrease in the number of touchbacks, which is a good thing. I am no longer, moving my laundry over from the washer to the dryer whenever these things are going on. I am no longer, getting up to grab a snack or use the restroom during kickoffs because it is now a play that actually has impact on the game. And I remember growing up, it was the same way. Like there was nothing like watching the Bears play and knowing that Devin Hester was going to have an opportunity to, completely change the game on one kickoff return. And, he did it a lot. And it was a lot of fun to watch. And the return is always electric when you look and it's like, oh, this guy's got, 60 yards of grass in front of him. And that's it. And it's like, is he going to get there? Like, it is an awesome play to watch. And I'm glad that it has been reincorporated into the NFL, even if it looks a little funky. Listen to these numbers because they're interesting. So through the first 2 weeks of the season in 2024, so last year, 67% of kickoffs resulted in touchbacks. Through the first 2 weeks of this season, only 17% of kickoffs were touchbacks. During last year's first 2 weeks of the season, only 31% of kickoffs were returned. This year, that number's up to 79%. And once again, this is a good thing. It's a play that you actually have to pay attention to now. It's awesome. And it's changed even, the outcomes of games. And it's changed the way that teams have coached. Like, for example, Shane Steichen into the Broncos game. People were asking him, why did you manage the game that way? And he was like, like with these new kickoff rules, like the other team's probably going to get some good field position. So he didn't want to give the football back because if you give the football back and the Broncos start at, the 33-yard line, they are 2 first downs away from kicking a game-winning field goal. It's the reality of it. Or they're, 67 yards away from scoring a touchdown or whatever they would need. And so it's impacted the end of games. Like we had the situation with Ben Johnson where, week 2, Monday Night Football, they're playing the Vikings. They need the 2-minute timeout to come into effect. And so he tells his kicker to kick it out of the back of the end zone. He couldn't. They end up bringing it out of the end zone and it burns the 2-minute timeout. And after the game, Ben Johnson was like, I should have kicked it out of bounds because then they would have started at the 40, which is, the 40, the 35, who cares there, right? So it's impacted the end of the games a little bit. It's shifted some of the strategy. Once again, this is a good thing. But it's also led to an improvement in field position for offenses. Touchbacks put you at the 35. And so if you start at the 35, you were legitimately, you were 20 yards away from being in, a good kicker's field goal range. The average starting field position in the NFL this year is a little past the 30-yard line. Again, you're 25 yards away from being able to kick a field goal. So field goals, are just a little bit easier to come by, especially when you factor in the new kicking balls in the NFL. So the NFL changed the rule on that. So previously, before this year, guys had to kick basically brand new footballs, approved by the NFL. Balls that weren't quite broken in yet. That is no longer the rule. Kickers now get to kick balls that have been broken in. And I was listening to Pat McAfee talk about this on his show, and he said something really interesting. He mentioned how kicking a ball that's broken in, it can add an extra 15 yards or up to an extra 15 yards of distance. So teams are starting with better field position, and they're able to make field goals from further out because of these new footballs. That, to me, translates that defenses in the NFL are more important than they've ever been. Like, you have to be able to generate 3 and outs, because if you give up a first down or two, all of a sudden, they're going to kick a field goal. You have to be able to force turnovers and create negative plays, because the other part of this is I think we're going to see more fourth down attempts than we've ever seen before. Because now, if I start at the 35 and I pick up a first down, I'm at the 45, I pick up 8 more yards, I'm on the other side of the field. And if I punt, I'm going to pick up 20 yards on the punt. And I'm too far to kick a field goal unless you have, Brandon Aubrey or Cam Little in Jacksonville, the guy who made the 70-yarder in the preseason. And so because of that, like have opportunities to, get a fourth down stop and get the ball at midfield. Like, that's awesome, right? So, and then obviously you need 3 and outs because, that's not a new thing. But, because if you give up 2 first downs now, you're done. So I went through it last night, and I was looking at, who are the best third down defenses, all that kind of stuff. So the top 10 third down defenses in the NFL, all of them are at least 500. Every team that's 3-1 or better is in the top half of the NFL in third down defense, except for 3 teams: Colts, the Bills, and the Jaguars. Those 3 teams, 2 of those 3 teams are, I would argue, elite so far at creating turnovers. The Jaguars lead the league in turnovers forced with 13. That's over 3 a game. That's actually a pretty insane number. The Colts, they're 7th. The Bills are 14th, which is, slightly above average, but they have Josh Allen, so they don't have to be great on defense. And then, also, the Eagles 4-0, Rams 3-1, Steelers 3-1, Lions 3-1, Seahawks 3-1. All those teams are also top 10 in takeaways. Then you have tackles for loss. The 3-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers lead the NFL in tackles for loss. The Steelers 3-1. They're 2nd. The 49ers 3-1. They're 6th. The Chargers 3-1. They're 9th. The Colts 3-1. They're 12th. Everyone, and rightfully so, is so infatuated with quarterbacks. It's still the most position. It is still the most important position in football. Because if I have a better quarterback than you, my chances of winning are pretty high. It's just the way that the sport works. It's why Patrick Mahomes has been to 7 straight AFC championship games. It's why the Chiefs have won 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls. It's why Tom Brady went to 8 straight AFC championships to close his tenure in New England. It's why, he won 6 Super Bowls in New England and so on. You have to have a great quarterback, right? It is still the most important position in the NFL. With that being said, with shorter fields, your quarterback doesn't have to be as good. When I was growing up and teams didn't start, past the 30-yard line on average, a touchback puts you at the 20, a normal kickoff return, you get out to the 25 or whatever it was. And you had Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. You had to have a guy like that. Because when you're going 80 yards as opposed to 65, like you have to be put together better. You have to be crisper. You're going to see more third and longs. Like you're going to. That's the reality of it. And because of that, you had to have a truly elite quarterback. Like that's just not the case anymore. Do you know why the Bills are 4-0? Because they have Josh Allen, and Josh Allen gets to start at the 35 now. It's really beneficial for one of the best quarterbacks in the sport who doesn't need any sort of help whatsoever. Like could you imagine Peyton Manning and Tom Brady playing football in an era where, you know, they're not having to go 80 yards every time they touch the football, on average at least, right? Because obviously, like, your defense is going to force turnovers and punts are going to impact that as well. So I think that the importance of defense has increased because of this whole field position thing, right? I mean, Thursday Night Football. I guess that would have been last week. Yeah. The Seahawks, they're playing the Cardinals, and the Cardinals do a great job of battling back. They tie the game. It's 20-20. And then it's like, all right, like let's see if Sam Darnold can put together a game-winning drive. He completed like one pass. He threw like a back shoulder ball to Jackson Smith-Njigba for like 18 yards. And then they're like, oh, cool. We're in field goal range. Let's run the football 3 times. And then, you know, let's run the clock down and kick an eventual game-winning field goal. Which it's just kind of, you know, changed things a little bit. It just feels a little bit easier to score the football because of this field position thing. I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if that's a bad thing. I just feel like it is going to lead to the importance of having a really good defense once again, because you're consistently having to defend shorter fields. The Major League Baseball playoffs are going on right now, and I just love it. Freaking love baseball, man, especially playoff baseball. And I had a really good time yesterday sitting down and watching the games. And the Cubs bullpen throwing 4 straight innings of no base runners, like that was the most surprising thing to me that happened yesterday. Seriously, like that's just the reality of it. All right. So I just they retired the final 14 batters of the Padres in order. I just look, if the Cubs are going to get good pitching from their bullpen, they're going to be capable of beating anybody because the starting pitching has been really good this year. The bats have, you know, they started hot and they kind of cooled off, but it feels like they might be heating up again a little bit. I don't know. I'm a little biased here, so we'll see on that. But I think my favorite thing specifically about the wild card round, I love the urgency of it because it's best 2 out of 3. So last night I'm watching the Yankees and the Red Sox, and the 9th hitter, Nick Sogard, second baseman for the Red Sox, he steps in. It's the 7th inning. Yankees are up 1. There's a runner on first, and Nick Sogard slaps what should have just been like, it was a regular season single. It's like kind of in the gap, but like not hit hard enough to where Aaron Judge and the Yankees center fielder are like having to run back to get it. Like they're like moving forward to grab it. And so he hits it. I'm like, that's a single, 1st and 3rd, 1 out. Red Sox have a chance to like really do something here. But no, Nick Sogard comes out of the box hauling, just straight flying around the bases. And he turns what should have been a single into a double. And it's very simply because he was playing with more urgency than Aaron Judge, who was the guy who ended up fielding the ball. By the way, that's one of the best arms in baseball that Nick Sogard did that against as well. I saw that play. I just started smiling, man. Because like that, to me, is the beauty of the Major League Baseball postseason. Like, because Major League Baseball and the NBA have this thing in common where guys just play harder when the playoffs start. It's just a reality. If you're a baseball fan, you probably don't like me saying that, but that's just true. And we saw it on that hustle play from Nick Sogard last night. It was awesome. Like I said, brought a legitimate smile to my face. So So glad that the Red Sox ended up winning that game. Having a true ace, such an advantage. Like Tariq Skubal just shoved for 7 2/3, 102 pitches, 73 of them were strikes. Just an absolute dominant outing from Skubal in that game against the Guardians as the Tigers won 2-1. We saw the same thing from Matthew Boyd in that Cubs game. Didn't obviously go 7 2/3, but only giving up. Only giving up one run. Still threw really, really well. But this is the most important thing. The Dodgers have the best team. That lineup is stupid. If the pitching figures it out, it's really tough to hit. The Reds are simply just greatly outmatched. I thought that they were going to have a chance last night with Hunter Green on the mound, and then Shohei Ohtani hit a home run, and then I can see his face. The left fielder for the Dodgers comes up, and he hits a home run, and you look up, it got ugly really quickly. I know that the Reds made a little bit of a push late, scored like 5 runs in the 8th, something like that, but it felt over pretty quickly. But more games today. The beauty of baseball, things change. Things can change very, very quickly. That's going to do it here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to tune in. No matter how you tuned in, head over to YouTube, subscribe to Indy Sports Ticket. You can check out my personal YouTube channel as well. My take is I'll be back tomorrow, 10 to noon. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way next. Sean Salisbury at 12:30, and then Kent Sterling at 2 for the Power Hour.